At 6:47 in the morning on August 14, 1935, Frank Hollister climbed down from the Caterpillar RD6 Bulldozer for the last time. He'd been on the machine for exactly 4 hours and 16 minutes. His hands were shaking, not from the vibration of the three-cylinder D6600 diesel engine that had been humming beneath him since before dawn, not from the August heat already building across the Tombstone tailings field. His hands shook because of what he'd heard through the steel frame. Ink transmitted up through the seat, clear as a human voice speaking directly into his skull. He walked to the contractor's office without looking back. 23 years old, a veteran operator who'd worked dozers from Bisbee to Phoenix, Frank submitted his notice effective immediately. He was the 23rd man to quit that particular machine in 8 months. The RD6 sat idling on a mound of crushed limestone 17 miles southeast of Tucson. A 45 horsepower of diesel power wrapped in 16,800 pounds of steel and iron. Caterpillar had just introduced the model that spring. This one carried serial number 4R1147, shipped from Peoria, Illinois in March. The blade, a straight S-type manufactured by Lee Tourneau, showed normal wear patterns. Track tension measured within factory specifications. Oil pressure held steady at 42 pounds per square inch. The machine operated flawlessly in every measurable way. Except men kept abandoning it. The Tombstone Consolidated Mining Company had purchased the RD6 to reprocess old tailings from the silver boom of the 1880s. 50 years after the Grand Central and Contention mines had closed, enough residual silver remained in the waste rock to justify extraction. Modern cyanide processing could pull metals from material the old stamp mills had missed. But first, someone had to move 10,000 cubic yards of 50-year-old tailings from their weathered piles into fresh processing stacks. The work should have been straightforward. The RD6 could push 8 to 10 cubic yards per blade load across flat ground. 3 shifts, 6 days a week. The contractor, Morrison Knudsen out of Boise, had calculated the job at 14 weeks. By August, they were entering their 9th month with completion nowhere in sight. Though the first operator, a man named Jessup, had lasted 3 days. He'd reported the machine ran rough, claimed the engine misfired. The company mechanic found nothing wrong. Compression tested perfect across all 3 cylinders. Fuel flow was clean. Jessup quit anyway, took a job in Benson at lower pay. The second operator made it through a week, then the third quit after 5 days. Morrison Knudsen brought in their senior mechanic from the Hoover Dam project, a man who'd been with Caterpillar since the Best and Holt merger. He spent 2 days with the machine, ran it through every diagnostic he knew, tore down the governor, checked the injector timing, pulled the oil pan and inspected every bearing. He found a machine in showroom condition. Under this video, you'll see a subscribe button, a small action with a big meaning. By pressing it, you're not only supporting the creation of more content like this, but you're also becoming part of the very exchange we've been talking about, giving and receiving in harmony. It's not about the size of the action, it's about the meaning. A simple subscription tells me these words reached you. It tells me that the effort, the late nights, and the discipline to bring this message forward mattered to someone on the other side of the screen. If you want to see how this mystery unfolded, please hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to the Bulldozer. The pattern emerged slowly. Some operators heard things, others felt them. A few saw movement in their peripheral vision, shapes that vanished when they turned to look directly. One man, a Papago Indian named Tom Sooney, refused to even start the engine. He'd walked up to the machine on his first morning, placed his hand on the hood, and walked straight back to the office. He told the foreman the machine carried bad medicine. But he wouldn't elaborate. He also wouldn't stay. By June, Morrison Knudsen had burned through 14 operators. Word spread through the mining camps. Men who'd work any piece of equipment for decent wages started declining the Tombstone job once they learned which machine they'd be running. The company tried rotating operators, putting different men on different shifts. It didn't matter. The RD6 chewed through them all. The incidents varied. Carlos Fuentes, operator number 9, swore the blade controls moved on their own. He'd be pushing a load, hands steady on the levers when the blade would lift without input. Not a hydraulic surge. The RD6 used cable controls, mechanical and precise. The blade would rise exactly 6 inches, hold for a 3 count, then lower. It happened 3 times during his 5-day tenure. The mechanic found perfect cable tension and no signs of stretching or slippage. Raymond Kowalski, number 14, issued reported temperature fluctuations. The engine would be running at normal operating temperature, 185 degrees Fahrenheit by the gauge, when cold air would roll across his lap. Not a breeze. The desert air hung still and heavy, but the cold came in waves, regular as breathing, cold enough to raise goose flesh on his arms in 100-degree heat. Frank Hollister had ignored all of it. He needed the work. The Depression had left experienced operators competing for any paying job. Oh, and Morris and Knutson paid union scale plus 20% hazard bonus. They'd added the bonus after the 11th resignation. Frank had a wife and a daughter in Phoenix. He could handle whatever superstitious nonsense had spooked the previous 22 men. His first 3 days went smooth. He showed up before dawn, fired the engine, and pushed tailings until the heat made the work impossible around 2 in the afternoon. The machine responded perfectly. The D6600 engine pulled strong through the load. The 5-speed transmission shifted cleanly. Frank finished each shift covered in limestone dust and sweat, satisfied with good money for hard work. The 4th morning started the same. He'd been pushing loads for 4 hours, building rhythm with the machine, when he heard it. Not through his ears, through the seat. A vibration that formed into syllables, words shaped by metal resonance rather than air. He felt it in his pelvis, his lower spine, the base of his skull. A name. His daughter's name, Mary, spoken with perfect clarity through the steel frame of a diesel bulldozer. Frank killed the engine. The silence of the desert rushed in, broken only by ticking metal as the engine cooled. He sat there for 20 minutes, hands on the controls, sweat running down his ribs. Then he climbed down and walked to the office. Morris and Knutson brought in their last option, Jack Reeves, 62 years old. Reeves had been operating heavy equipment since the Panama Canal. He'd run steam shovels, drag lines, locomotives. He'd seen men die in cave-ins, watched machinery fail in spectacular ways, worked through diseases that killed half a construction camp. He didn't believe in ghosts or hexes or bad medicine. He believed in diesel engines and hydraulic systems and the rational behavior of mechanical devices. He lasted 11 days, a new record. On his last morning, Reeves arrived at the RD6 to find every control reversed. The blade lift cables ran through the lowering sheaves. The steering clutches were crossed. The throttle linkage connected backwards. It would have taken hours of deliberate work to reconfigure the machine that way. The site was locked and guarded. The night watchman had seen nothing, heard nothing. The mechanic verified that every change had been done with proper tools, professionally executed. They rebuilt the controls to factory standard. Reeves spent the next 9 days working in determined silence. On the morning of day 11, he arrived to find a photograph tucked into the seat cushion. A daguerreotype, the kind made in the 1880s. It showed a man in mining clothes standing beside what looked like a steam-powered hoist. The man's face had been scratched away, gouged out with something sharp. Reeves set the photograph on the foreman's desk and collected his pay. The archives at the Cochise County Courthouse held the answer, though nobody thought to look there until September. A researcher working on a completely different project found it, a death certificate from November 1883. James Wickham, age 41, killed in an accident at the Grand Central Mine Processing Facility. The report was sparse. Equipment malfunction, massive trauma, the body released to family for burial. The processing facility had stood exactly where Morris and Knutson was now moving tailings. The old foundation stones were still visible if you knew where to look, buried under 50 years of accumulated waste rock. Wickham had been operating a mechanical loader, an early steam-powered device that moved ore from the sorting racks to the cyanide vats. Contemporary accounts described it as dangerous equipment. The steam pressure ran high, the mechanical arms had no guards. Shown 3 men had been injured on the machine before Wickham died on it. The newspaper coverage of his death ran 3 paragraphs. The tombstone epitaph noted that Wickham left behind a wife and 3 daughters. It mentioned he'd been employed at the Grand Central for 6 years, was considered a skilled operator. The article ended with a brief note that operations at the facility had resumed the following day with a replacement operator. No memorial, no investigation. Have no record of what exactly had happened beyond equipment malfunction. Morrison Knudsen made their decision in late September. They brought in a different machine, a larger Caterpillar D7 from another job site. They moved the RD6 to the farthest corner of the equipment yard, facing away from the tailings field. The D7 finished the project in 6 weeks with a single operator who reported no unusual incidents. The RD6 sat in that corner through the fall and winter of 1935. In January 1936, Morrison Knudsen transferred it to a road project near Flagstaff. The new operator, a man with no connection to the Tombstone job and no knowledge of its history, worked the machine for 8 months without incident. It performed flawlessly. After Flagstaff, the machine moved to Phoenix, then to a Forest Service project in the White Mountains. In 1941, it was sold to a contractor in California. It worked steadily until 1952 when it was finally retired and scrapped. But 23 operators had walked away from that machine in 8 months. 23 men, most of them experienced professionals, had encountered something they couldn't explain and wouldn't endure. Their accounts remained consistent. Mechanical impossibilities, sensory phenomena that violated natural law, personal information manifested through steel and diesel fuel. James Wickham died in November 1883. The dates don't align perfectly. 52 years separated his death from the incidents on the RD6. Showed the equipment wasn't the same. Steam power versus diesel, mechanical arms versus cable-operated blade. The only connection was location, the exact same patch of Arizona ground, the same work, the same repetitive mechanical motion day after day. But location matters. The Tohono O'odham who lived in the area before the miners came believed certain places accumulated events. That violent death marked land in ways that persisted. The Mexican laborers who worked the original mills told stories about the processing facility, claimed they heard machinery running at night when all the equipment stood idle. The Chinese workers who lived in camps near the tailings fields reported ghost lights moving through the waste rock piles, always in the same patterns, always at the same time of night. Morrison Knudsen's records show total labor costs for the Tombstone project at 3 times the original estimate. Most of that overrun came from the operator turnover on a single machine, 23 resignations. 23 men who chose unemployment during the Great Depression over continuing to work a brand new, mechanically perfect bulldozer. Whatever they encountered convinced them that some discomforts run deeper than poverty. The RD6 exists now only in maintenance records and photographs. One image survives from the Tombstone job, a grainy shot showing the machine on a tailings pile, the blade loaded with crushed limestone. In the background, barely visible, stands a figure. The photographer's notes identify everyone present that day. The figure in the background doesn't match any of them. It appears to be wearing clothes from a different era. The photo quality is too poor to make out details. Or perhaps the quality is exactly right for what it captured. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us preserve these histories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from.